This story is narrated by Detective Thomas Malone, as he recalls an investigation into secret cults in Red Hook, Brooklyn, that gave him a phobia of large buildings. The Red Hook case, or also known as the case of Robert Sudam, attracted Malone when he was a member of the Brooklyn Police Department. The Red Hook slum area is extremely crime-ridden, with immigrants from Syria, Spain, Italy crowding the streets. Throughout the city, children are being kidnapped. One of the suspects was a Robert Sudam, described by Malone as a literate recluse of ancient Dutch family who possessed originally of barely independent means, and inhabiting the spacious but ill-preserved mansion which his grandfather had built in Flatbush. A queer, corpulent old fellow whose unkempt white hair, stubbly beard, shiny black clothes, and golden-headed cane earned him an amused glance. Malone also describes him as a really profound authority on medieval superstition. It was very well known that Sudam also preached Kabbalah teachings at his mansion in Flatbush on Martin's Street. He often harped on about the powers of Sephiroth, Asmodeus, and Samuel, while he himself sponsored a gang in the Butler Street area. He smuggled immigrants through the underground channels and rented them cheap apartments. They all attended his Nestorian church and Tibetan shamanism rites. Among the cultists, there were also Mongols from Kurdistan and the Yazidi lands, the last of the living Persian Satanists and nomadic cultists. The people from Kurdistan believed that the great priesthood gave them the power and bliss in distant lands. News arrived on Sudam's engagement to a well-to-do woman. He married Miss Cornelia Gerritsen, a distant relative from Bayside, while at the same time there is an increase in local kidnappings. The authorities demanded police action. The police raid Sudam's Red Hook flat, but uncovers nothing useful, save a few strange inscriptions. Sudam and his bride sailed into the seas for their honeymoon. Shortly after sailing, the newlyweds were found dead in the cabin. The ship's doctor saw outside the cabin window a phosphorescent creature that left claw marks on the throats of the murdered couple. Written on the wall was a Chaldean word: Lilith. Soon, a steamer approached the ship. Dark-haired, Arab-looking men in police uniforms presented a letter from Sudam, requesting in advance that the ship's crew surrender his body to the owner of the letter. The foreigners secretly filled bottles with the bride's blood and sailed away. Meanwhile, Red Hook is overrun by the cultists. Children have begun to be kidnapped in the suburbs of Gowanus. Police arrest immigrants in Miders, find altars everywhere in blood. Malone investigates Sudam's flat to see what he can find. There he finds finds a door leading to the basement, which suddenly collapses under pressure from the other side. An unknown force pulls the detective's mind down to the bottomless pit. The narrator describes the scene he saw after that as following. Nothing can ever efface the memory of those nighted crypts, those Titan arcades, and those half-formed shapes of hell that strode gigantically, in silence holding half-eaten things, whose still surviving portions screamed for mercy or laughed with madness. Odors of incense and corruption joined in sickening concert, and the black air was alive with the cloudy, semi-visible bulk of shapeless elemental things with eyes. Somewhere dark stickly water was lapping at onyx spears, and once the shivery tinkle of Rakio's little bells pealed out to greet the insane titter of a naked phosphorescent thing, which swam into sight, scrambled ashore, and climbed up to squat leeringly on a carved golden pedestal in the black ground. Satan here held his Babylonish court, and in the blood of stainless childhood, the leprous limbs of phosphorescent Lilith were laved. Incubi and succubi hold praise to Hecate, and headless moon calves bleated to the Magna Mater. Goats leaped to the sound of thin accursed hoods, and the Egyptians chased endlessly after misshapen fawns over rocks, twisted like swollen toads. Moloch and Astaroth were not absent, for in this quintessence of all damnation, the bounds of consciousness were let down, and man's fancy lay open to vistas of every realm of horror and every forbidden dimension that evil had power to mold. The world and nature were helpless against such assaults. From unsealed wells of night, nor could any sign of prayer check the Walpurgiasty of horror, which had come when a sage with the hateful locked and brimming coffer of transmitted demon lore. Robert Sudam's body is sprinkled and carried to the feet of the phosphorescent creature. An unholy organ sounds from the tunnels, the rumble of the tortures of hell and the sardonic bass. The procession begins. Goats, satyrs, Egyptians, incubi, succubi, lemurs, slouching frogs, elementals, dog howlers, silent shadow dance with Dionysiac fury. Eerie carcasses of the words of Gorgo and Mormos incantation sound. Behold the bridegroom, great Lilith. Sudam's corpse comes back to life and runs to the altar, with the entire procession chasing after it. In the end, Sudam's corpse manages to destroy the altar, and the room fills with water from the abyss. Malone loses consciousness when a stroke of thunder destroys this universe of evil. 3 old houses in the Parker Place collapse, killing police officers and cultists. Malone was found under the house by a black pond full of bones. Sudam's body was identified by fillings on the crowns of his teeth. The case seemed clear to the authorities. Sudam was a leader in extensive men smuggling operations. From the kennel to his house was but one of several subterranean channels and tunnels in the neighborhood. The police found an altar, an organ, and a prison where 17 prisoners remained in a mutilated state, gravely injured, including 4 mothers with creepy-looking babies who had died before they were born. The channels were filled with concrete. The dead were buried in the Greenwood Cemetery. Red Hook remained the same, like Hydra with 1,000 heads, and the age-old cult of darkness, and in it deeper than Democritus well. But Malone somehow still thinks that the Red Hook horrors never really ended. As it turns out, his worries were not without a cause. As he describes that just the other day, an officer overheard an old woman teaching a small child an incantation in the shadows of an areaway. O friend and companion of night, thou who rejoicest in the baying of dogs and spilled blood, who wanderest in the midst of shades among the tombs, who longest for blood and bringest terror to mortals, Gorgo, Mormo, thousand-faced moon, look favorably on our sacrifices.